Okay, so good news. The two puppies that I had my eyes on, one of them I shared with you guys, have been rescued. So that's really, really good news. I was worried about them. I had reached out to a foundation to see if I could help out with two of the dogs they had. And they were like, well, if you want to rescue them, you can go to the shelter. There, the rest of the litter is there. And I was thinking I could either foster, which I'm down to do, or I could rescue. And so, hold on. And so I drove all the way to the shelter to see, what was going on with them. I had called before I did, and I was going to go down there and see what I could do to help them. Y'all, by the time I made it down there, those two little puppies, I found out they were adopted. Someone had got there at 4 a.m. Mind you, the shelter doesn't open until 11 a.m. Someone had got there at 4 a.m., and he had adopted both of them, which is a good thing. He adopted both of them so they get to stay together. And apparently he has two other huskies. So I was like, okay, he's a husky dad. He knows what's up. Turns out a bunch of other people went down there to try to help out. So they were telling people, like, we know you came here for the puppies, but look at some of the other dogs. So I ended up looking at this dog. His name was Dino. He was a black and white husky, really sweet boy, only like 2 years old. Just a cutie pie, just a sweet boy. And it turns out he was going to be adopted yesterday, but the guy who was like about to fill out paperwork, apparently he had 4 dogs already. And by law, you can only have a certain amount of dogs. So he had hit his limit and he couldn't adopt him, it sucks because apparently they were a great match. And Dino has been bummed out. So I met him and got a chance to speak to the dog and play with him with another family who ended up adopting a dog that looks a lot like Harlow. And we just bonded and talked a bit. And her daughter really took a liking to both dogs. And then another gentleman came in and he was looking for the dog that they had adopted. And I told him about Dino. So Dino's a sweet boy, very playful. But I was looking at his temperament and I thought maybe his temperament may not be a match with Harlow. He's a sweet boy, but I know how Harlow is. So I was just like, I don't know, like my instinct was like, pull back a little bit, just wait, think about it, give it some time. So by the time I went back in there to tell them about what I thought, other people were, there and asking about different huskies. And I kept telling them, please check him out because he's really a great dog. Like that dog none of those dogs should be in shelters. They really shouldn't. But he's so amazing. So if any of you guys want a really sweet, playful boy who's good with children and can play on his own, Dino at Carson Animal Shelter, a great boy. Okay, keeper. I know dogs. I've rescued dogs. That is a keeper, but I have to be mindful of the temperament with Harlow, whether I foster or whether I adopt. And that's one of the reasons why I was thinking like I could foster those puppies or I could adopt them. Really wanted to adopt one. And because I felt like I could train the dog, and Harlow could help me and she'll kind of take on the experience like she's a mom. And I thought that would be helpful since she, this is her home. And when you have a shelter dog already, a dog who came from the shelter, they can be kind of territorial over their home. You don't want her to feel like she's being pushed to the side. So I thought the puppies would have been amazing. And the way they came across, like my timeline was just so synchronistic, similar to how I got Harlow, that I felt like maybe one of those puppies were for me. You guys know me. I probably would have rescued both of them. But the thing is, it just wasn't the right time. It wasn't for me. I'm just happy that both of them were able to go to someone who already has huskies. He knew his stuff. He was there at 4 a.m. He was dedicated. So either way, those huskies would have been adopted. I'm just hoping that the older huskies are adopted into homes because a lot of them are great with children. A lot of those families didn't have dogs. So hopefully that works out. But furthermore, I don't know, maybe it just happened for me to realize that Harlow is lonely. I noticed that about Harlow. She misses Joe. I miss Joe. But Harlow is a social dog. Siberian Huskies do well in packs. And I think it's time that she has a friend because every time I come home from work, she's just looking sad. And even when I'm outside playing with her, she looks at me and I'm like, what's missing? Then I realize when we're outside and, we're going for walks, she's looking for the socialization. She wants to be socialized with other dogs. She wants to, spend time with her friends. She wants to, be social. And I just, I could really feel that energy. And I'm so used to having multiple dogs that it feels weird to only have one dog. It feels really odd. But now I have to be mindful that whatever dog I adopt or rescue, that it's a good match with her. It was a little different with my Maltese. They were born and raised here. But Harlow's a rescue. So I had to make sure that their temperament matches hers well. Yeah, so that's that. But shout out to Miss Vicky over at Carson Animal Shelter. And a shout out to Dino, sweet Dino. You guys, please. There's so many great dogs there. There's amazing dogs at that shelter. It's a smaller shelter in comparison to like the Riverside shelter, which was really like, they're both oversaturated, but Riverside shelter was bad, y'all. It was bad. But there's a lot of dogs on the list, y'all. So good dogs. Like Frances was on the list. She's one of the dogs that I shared, and she was adopted today. So that was a really good thing because I was worried about Frances. She's the one that looks similar to Harlow. I met the family who rescued her. They were actually the ones that were spending time with me and Dino. And I'm just hoping that Dino gets rescued. Like I'm really worried about him. And I hope those puppies stay with who they have because a lot of times people adopt dogs and they take them back. Unfortunately, I was there long enough to see people surrendering their dogs, which was sad. Really sad to see. And so I saw both sides. I saw, like, Dino did not want me to leave. And I felt so guilty. I was like, oh, little man. And then I saw, like, dogs being surrendered and watching the heartbreaking, like, their heartbreak in their faces. It's just, y'all, literally stop breeding these animals. Stop breeding. Like, it's so many pit bulls, German shepherds, Belgian Malinois, and Siberian huskies in those shelters, y'all. I saw so many cute little dogs as well. Like, there's just so many sweet animals. Great temperaments. So if you don't have a dog, go get one. And just work with them. Give them energy and time. Like I said, the only reason why I didn't leave with Dino is because it's like he already has a temperament that's set. You know what I mean? And I don't know how that's going to go with my girl. Yeah, and just intuitively, I was like, I think he's someone else's baby. I could just feel it, But I don't know. I will never forget him. I keep thinking about him and the other pups that are part of that litter. Because what happened is, if you guys stayed around long enough to watch the end of this video, those puppies, someone dumped them in different cities. Yeah. So they've been on the street, who knows for how long, because they're babies. They were like 12 weeks old. Crazy. So I thought this would be like a really good deed. And if it's meant, I would be able to get one and train it, but it is what it is. There's another story to what happened after. When I was leaving the animal shelter, my car ended up smoking up, y'all, and I ended up in a, let's just say, questionable area, and had some interesting things happen to me, but I'm home safe, and that's all that matters. And maybe my red hair may have saved me or helped me blend in. That's a whole nother story if y'all want to hear. I might post it because I'm crazy. But yeah, what's meant to be will be. And if you'll just feel it. With Harlow, I felt it. With Harlow, I knew, I was like, that's my baby. I'm driving to Riverside, which was over an hour drive to go and get her so they won't put her down. Like, I felt it in my spirit. She was my girl, and she's the best decision I've ever made in my life to this day. The best decision. That girl, I love her mind, body, and spirit. That's my baby. That's my spirit guide. So I just feel like what's meant is going to play out. It's going to work out for me. And I just pray that soon. I pray it soon because I think it's time. I think it's time for a little friend. What's crazy is the shelter was asking for so much money for the puppies, but very little for the other dogs. Very interesting, which I understand because you have to be careful of who's adopting. But they were asking a lot of money for puppies when they haven't done a lot of stuff to them. When it's a puppy, they can't get a lot done automatically. You have to wait until they get a little bit older. So I thought that was kind of weird.